Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's morning commute. Tomo, how's your week been?
It's been all right, actually. As some of you may have heard when I think I said yesterday, I've been battling hay fever, but you know what? That's what antihistamines are invented for. So, yeah, it's been lovely going out and having some nice time in the garden, trying my best to work on a laptop with the sun shining on it, but, you know, first world problems. But I'm really excited because the week is being ended with us at Bristol Next Geners are hosting a virtual cocktail night that everybody in Next Gen is invited to. So if you are free tonight, I'll pop another registration link in Slack and probably in the chat in a moment. And just come along. Look, I'm taking it seriously because I'm kind of meant to. I'm hosting it with Gretchen and Rich. So I'll be making a few cocktails. If you don't like cocktails, just bring a beer or a soft drink. Doesn't really matter. I'll be dressing up a bit because, again, I've been wearing shorts and T-shirts for the last, 2 months, and I felt like dressing up. Again, you don't have to. Just come along, relaxed. Everybody's invited. Click on the link when I send it across. There is a plug done. So what about today? So today we've got Chris Budd, who is reaching for his guitar for a new feature. Yeah, that should be fun. I've heard him do this, and he's actually quite good, to his credit. So that should be a bit of fun. We have our interview guest, Natalie Bell from the Verve Group. And we have our Friday wins from Hiran and Dan. And also our normal fitness focus from Steve. But before we do all of that, we're going to go across to Charles, who's going to give us an update from the new Model Advisor desk. Charles.
Morning, everyone. Hope you're all well this morning. Like Tom, I'm also suffering a bit from hay fever. So if you can hear a slight sniffle in my voice, that's the reason. So the news this morning is that I'll sort of give you a quick rundown. So a story that James Fitzgerald has been working on for us. He's been looking into the number of advisor insolvencies in the first few months of the year. And the number has gone down, which seems like good news for now, particularly with yesterday's FSCS levy being raised. Hopefully fewer advice businesses going out of business is good news for that figure. It's probably still slightly too early to say whether that figure has anything to do with the coronavirus lockdown, but the early signs are that at least in March, in the early stages, that hasn't fed through. So you can read all about that on our website later today, probably in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Elsewhere, there's not loads happening today. Often Friday is the slow news day read today for us, but it's not completely. It may not be completely part of our world, but I'm sure everyone's aware of Monzo. Co-founder stepped down as chief executive, Tom Blomfeld. He's moved to president, and like every business, even Monzo as a banking firm has been facing trouble during the pandemic. So it's an interesting time for them. A lot of people I know use them. It definitely seems to be the challenger bank of choice at the moment, but I guess the next step is going to be the tricky one for them. So yes, it'll be worth keeping an eye on who comes in there and what we will be seeing there. And then the final story I thought I would run down for you is for any football fans, myself included. Manchester United's debt has risen quite significantly, again showing the impact of the coronavirus even on these sort of businesses who you would think would be able to ride it out, but their debt has increased in the last quarter by 127 million. So with their ownership situation, being owned by Americans who put debt on the club in the first place, obviously they can't sell tickets to games. People will be spending £80, £90 on shirts so much. TV rights, whole TV rights situation is very much up in the air. So yeah, I think it just shows that this crisis is having an impact on all sorts of businesses.
Thanks, Charles. So does that mean that there's a chance Man United might start to falter and go down the leagues and not have any money to buy new players? Because that sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah, I mean, it probably sounds statistic to quite a few people, but I think they'll find a way through it all.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately.
it's interesting to see and how they deal with that, really, because a lot of people have said their business model is the one that's best in the Premier League, waiting out a situation like this with all their sort of like noodle partners in China and things like that. But whether those partners will still be willing to pay them the same amount of money during a recession remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, that's fun, having partnerships in China right now. Anyway, I'm going to move swiftly on before I make this a political broadcast. So what are we looking for today? I suppose we've got bank holiday coming up. So what's in the pipeline for you guys?
Yeah, so the bank holiday as well. I think, as I was saying, things do tend to have this habit of slowing down around bank holidays as people sort of take the extra day off or aren't around. So in terms of news, I wouldn't say there's loads on the table. You never know what might happen. We're actually working, I'm not sure if any of my colleagues mentioned, but we're working on an around the world special at the moment, due to come out the week after. So we'll be all sort of putting our effort to that today and all of next week, really. We spoke to advisors, financial planners in South Africa, in Australia, the Netherlands. So I think that'll be a really interesting special for everyone.
That sounds great. Look, thanks for jumping on this morning.
Great, thanks.
Always good to hear from you and your team. So yeah, swiftly passing on to Joe. What have you got for us next?
So next we have our regular contributor, Chris Budd, but this time with a very much anticipated guitar-based well-being tip for the day.
Well, well-being is all about anticipation, Joe, so not in the delivery. So, right, we're going to play a quick game because it's a Friday. What's your music knowledge like, Joe?
Very, very poor. Actually, specialise in sort of 90s and early 2000s.
Okay, well, I don't know a great deal past 2000, so we might have. So why don't you front this then? So I want everybody on the chat to be shouting, and I've got 20 songs, intro songs, introduction to songs. Most of them are classics. Tomo, I was going to say Tomo's not allowed to do this because he's heard them all before, but actually he couldn't get them then, so he could probably join in. It wouldn't make any difference. So I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to whack through as many intros as I can. Everybody on the chat, say what you think the song is, and then Joe, you shout it out and I'll move on when you've got it. Okay? Everybody ready? Fingers at the keyboards. Here we go. Oh. Oh, I'm not playing that very well. Come on, somebody. I can't believe you fallen at the first.
Yeah. Has anyone got any suggestions?
Rebel,
Rebel.
Right, so we got it.
Delilah?
Yes.
Wish you were here.
Yes.
We're here.
No surprises. Yes.
surprises.
Okay, easy one. Not Brown Eyed Girl, the other one. Bright Side of the Road. I'll give you it. Close enough. Not Stereophonics. Mammox, yes. Oh, I'll give it to you. It's Designed for Life.
Rich got that.
Freak Out, yes. God, you lot are rubbish. Right, that's 2 minutes. Easy one to finish with.
Fast cars.
Fast car, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, you're rubbish. You got 9.
So we were doing an ovation pub quiz for our clients last night, and a lot of those songs came up, and you guys did far better than I did. I think I got one. I think Delilah, that was it. So well done, guys.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Absolutely loved that. Thanks, Chris. Tomo, what have we got next?
Wow. What we have next is another uplifting edition of Friday Wins with Hiran and Dan. How are you guys today? Where are you? There you are. You ready to go?
Am I off mute? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I think we're good. We've even got screen share.
Yeah, mate. I'm moving up in the world now.
I know, anyways, right? Go for it.
Wasting time. So, Hiran, I think you're doing this one, mate.
I am. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dan. Well, firstly, we're going to start off with a story that has a lot in there, actually. There's some gardening, there's some well-being, there's some determination. And after all of that, there's actually sort of the benefits, the actual fruit of all the labor. So well done, Hugh. Love that.
Yeah. Similar note, we've got this one from Nathan, who's, I think he's just recently joined Next actually, but everyone knows Nathan. And even during a crisis like this, it's actually good to see that a Next Gen business is actually thriving. I don't know if he's on the chat today, but yeah, well done, Nathan, for that. He's had his best month since the restart of his business.
Thank you, Dan. Well, again, great to hear about Next Gen businesses thriving. Well done, James Wallace. A great story. Keep up the Friday Wins.
Thanks, mate. And yeah, this is our final one from Next Gen for this week. Everyone knows Catherine, of course they do. I don't know if she's in this today, but she started her financial coaching for financial advisors course, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now, and it's actually fully booked as well. So yeah, we're all immensely proud of it, and the team at Postcard are as well. So well done, Catherine, for that. So we'll move on to global ones now. Hiran, what's this one, mate?
Thank you, Dan. Well, this is a nice story out of the Canadian government. British Columbia government in Canada buys a hotel to house homeless people and rehire workers during the pandemic. They've provided housing for more than 200 homeless Canadians, also provided work for struggling hotel employees who may have lost a job through the pandemic. The government purchased the hotel for about $18.5 million and currently has 65 rooms for temporary accommodation. So through this pandemic, they've roughly housed 298 rough sleepers and have already been moved in to temporary housing amongst other properties. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, awesome story, that. This one's a bit optimistic, but I just thought I'd stick it in there anyway. Some of you might have seen this story. It was on BBC News this week. It is a company in the US, I can't remember their name, but they've found a vaccine, and well, I think they've found a potential vaccine. It's called mRNA-1273. It contains a small snippet of code from COVID-19, and it's been injected into 45 patients. And out of the eight that they've tested so far, like done human trials on so far, all of them have been found with antibodies in their blood that can higher their immune system, so they might be able to fight off the virus. Now, it's still a long way off. We might never find a vaccine, but this is certainly promising from a company in America. And the last one for today, Hiran.
Thank you, Dan. Well, this one, I believe, is in tune with most of what everyone has been saying, what they would like to or look forward to be doing after the sort of lockdown's over. It's maybe something to do over this weekend as well. Safari from the comfort of your own sofa. Wilder Safari Live is an award-winning, expert-hosted live safari. Those of you who are fans of Tiger King, we have a lot more characters or so in this one. This is directly broadcasted from the Kruger National Park in South Africa and the Masai Mara in Kenya, directly into your home. It's available both on the internet and the television, and enables you to interact with an expert game ranger in real time. The show is completely free. I'm sure Tomo would be pleased to hear about that. It's unscripted and real. It's absolutely awesome. In fact, I've actually got my kids signed up to the sunrise safari. My turn to wake them up at around 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll put the link in the chat box.
Yeah, thanks guys. We've run over a little bit, but yeah, we'll pass back to Tom and Joe now, but have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Love a bit of good news on a Friday. So next we have an interview with Natalie Bell, who is the Director of Culture and Engagement at the Verve Group. Hi Natalie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hi Jill, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really looking forward to today's interview. From my understanding, the Verve Group have actually quite a number of brands, kind of Parasols, Art of Finance, Apricity, the grad scheme. So I think it's fair to say that you're taking a very multi-pronged approach to changing the face of financial planning. And one of the things that I think the Verve Group is really recognized across the profession for is its great culture. What are the things that you've done to kind of create this, and how do you maintain it?
Where do I start? I suppose in terms of just a very little bit of context, I joined Kathy about 3.5 years ago, and we were friends from uni, so there was a kind of a friendship and relationship there. And she got me in to do marketing, and on my very first day at Parasols, what was just Parasols then, we talked about marketing, my marketing role, and basically told me that there was a waiting list of clients, and I was like, who hires a marketing person to do lots of marketing when actually we don't have the capacity? So she needed to make use of me somehow. I had a background of working on culture change programs, so in a world where she already had some values within Parasols, some company values, they, you know, I think it's probably fair to say with a smaller team, they weren't particularly articulated in a way that was met for the type of growth that she was was kind of going after. So the first thing really, Joe, was we got to the bottom of the values, we articulated them into behaviours, did a great big piece on actually how that works as a staff journey. You know, we do it for clients, what's the client journey? And I've spent a lot of time actually finessing what the staff journey is, you know, from how we recruit, the language we use, and how we talk about ourselves through to onboarding, and indeed how we continue to reward, whether it be monthly employee kudos schemes, whether it be our annual staff awards at the end of the year. So it's just, you know, the short answer is values and behaviours, and just how they absolutely underpin every piece of action that happens across the whole group.
And with the values piece, was that something that you saw input from the whole team, or how did that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had some initial established values, which we did some consultation with the team at the time. But actually, more than that, the values were correct, what we were seeing in terms of what we wanted from the team, how we treat each other, how we treat clients. What wasn't there was actually making them tangible, turning them into behaviours, how we can recognise good behaviour and indeed bad behaviour. And it just brings it to the fore for everybody. It creates that ownership. One of our values is called Got Your Back, which is very much around that team spirit. And it's not unusual if you're overhearing conversations that are happening in the office, you know, the throwaway comment of, you know, you've not got my back there, or so-and-so's on the phone, can you have the back? And just being able to use that language in such a day-to-day scenarios makes it very real for the whole team. We do have a great grad scheme, you mentioned that earlier, and because of that, we've got quite a young workforce. So actually the concept of organisational development and values and behaviours and staff engagement isn't tangible to many. It's very conceptual. So we and the marketing team work very hard to actually bring it to life, essentially.
Amazing. So with the graduate program that you guys have, which seems quite extensive and clearly supports a diverse range of new entrants into the profession, what more do you think the profession can do to improve diversity and inclusion?
There's always more to be done. I think personally, for a short answer, I think it's that everybody within financial services right now, it's about understanding we all have a role to play. We all need to champion financial services. I'm not afraid to admit that actually up until, 3.5 years ago, before joining the profession myself, you know, there were so many negative connotations around financial services. You know, I immediately thought the only career would have been financial advice, that I would have had to have been great at maths. That's certainly kind of some myths that I personally felt even as an adult, and that was where my best friend was working in financial services. So I think we need to step up. I think we need to be really, really confident in championing financial services, and just shouting from the rooftops in terms of what a great and varied career, and what a great time to join. Like, I find it's incredibly exciting, and being part of something really big and changing, which is the personal one for me.
So interesting that you say that there are myths surrounding financial services and financial advice, because actually I held, you know, exactly those same myths, and my dad is a financial advisor, so you know, if I thought that, then no wonder so many other swathes of people.
And the same with Kathy. I was on a very layman's term. I was like, I don't know what a paraplanner is yet. My best friend's one, you know, the advisor. I'm not really sure. And, you know, we've had those conversations since with Kathy, and, you know, she's admittedly held a hand up and said, actually, she shies away from it because it's a really, you know, sometimes an uncomfortable conversation to have around, you know, what is or what isn't a paraplanner, and how do you really start to break down the myths just single-handedly. And the truth is, one person can't do all of it, which is why I think we really need to be doing more around just kind of doing the champion piece.
And I've also seen just on social media that you guys have been working on something called Project 2030. I think it's where you've been innovating and redesigning many of the things that you do. How's that project going?
It's stressful project, if I'm being completely honest, but it's gone great. It's exciting, and thankfully that's where I get my kicks. I get my kicks from being under pressure, but yeah, no, it's gone great. So Project 2030 was essentially Kathy's vision when we went into lockdown, that actually when we do come out, we're coming out in a very different place. Yes, we don't know what exactly, other than we feel like the business that we all envisaged will have accelerated somewhat over the next 10 years, which is where the 2030 got to. So it's been rolled out across the whole group. So in Parasols, which is led by Jo, they've been working on some interactive suitability reports, working on virtual paraplanning service. Came in Apricity and her team, they've been looking at improving the tech in the compliance software that we've built, taking their own events online. The Art of Finance, which is the one main company that I lead on, we, is no surprise, are taking our online, our training courses online until we know when we're back in classrooms. It's just a case of getting them. We don't as a profession have the time to stand still in terms of our CPD, so getting out an online option and new courses. So yeah, lots of content build, lots of marketing, lots of sleepless late nights and early mornings, and the irony that I've got a 4-year-old daughter running around the house who actually I feel like I'm barely seeing at the minute is ironic. So roll on the 1st of June, which is the official launch of all of those new services redesigned.
I was going to say, and on top of all of that, you've got your big launch event on the 1st of June, which is very soon.
Yes, exactly. So it's virtual. We did, as like many other, have an annual conference, our first one booked in for this summer, which naturally we've cancelled. But I suppose going back to the culture thing and what we're renowned for, we like to celebrate, and it's important that we do. So we, on the 1st of June, are going to do a virtual launch party. It's not just a usual kind of Zoom video call. There's quite a lot of kind of production that we're in the background that we're working on as well. So just making sure that we've got the content. So yeah, glutton for punishment, I think, more than ever, but very excited. And because it's a celebration, we are sending people fizz because we want people to toast with us. Yes, we can't be in the same room together, but equally we can all raise a glass. And just as a quick plug, the registrations are still open, but I think it's being closed maybe at 12 or something, or 11 o'clock today, so that we can get the post in time for the Fizz. So just FYI.
Amazing. Well, wishing you all the best of luck for that.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you.
And last but not least, a question that we like to ask all of our guests is, what are you most looking forward to when lockdown eventually ends?
Me personally, I would say family. I'm desperate to give my mum and dad and brothers and sisters a hug. However, that's been said plenty. So I would say self-indulgent. I'm missing facials and massages and just my monthly, regular, guilt-free R&R. So yeah, get the spa open.
Yeah, hear. Thanks again, Natalie, for your time this morning.
Thanks.
So next, we are moving on to our fitness focus with Steve Martin. Steve, what have you got for us this week?
Hi, Jo. First and foremost, I've got a new toy. You may notice I am not on a bike today. If you can see, we're on a treadmill. The treadmill arrived yesterday. You probably can't see anything of that, and I'm going to get off, otherwise I'm going to fall off. I did wonder whether we could do fitness focus whilst I was running on the treadmill. And then, but I then decided that was going to be a total and utter disaster. So even walking at 3 kilometres an hour, trying to talk and trying to activate an iPad at the same time was destined for total failure. So I'm not going to bother. But yeah, so the bike is out. It's on the terrace. Treadmill has made it into the office. So we're changing our game a little bit. And yes, Adam's saying you guys aren't insured for me to fall off the treadmill and then sue whilst trying to present the fitness focus. We're going to have a run through actually a little bit more on exercise today, because I've kind of focused a lot on nutrition and sleep and intermittent fasting and all that kind of stuff previously, but we're actually going to talk a little bit about exercise today. In exercise, intensity is important. We have to be careful how we use it, and we have to be careful of our kind of pre-existing health conditions. So the kind of health warning comes that if you're not used to intense or any kind of intensity of exercise, whenever it's appropriate to do so, just pop along and see your doctor, get checked out, make sure you're not heart attack waiting to happen. Otherwise, you're not allowed to follow anything I'm about to say to you. Assuming you've had the all clear, in order to make genuine progress in exercise, and this has this correlation between it's not just from an exercise point of view, but it is about improving your general health. We need to understand a little bit about intensity. So the most common thing that people do when they start to run is just go and run. And then every day they go and run, or every couple of days they go and run, and they run at broadly the same speed for broadly the same distance each time they go. And to start with, that's great, and they feel that progress comes quite quickly. I'm getting quicker, I've managed a bit further, and a bit quicker. But relatively soon, if you keep at it, you're going to hit a plateau. And then you're going to start to get frustrated because you think, I'm trying to run the same distance, whether it's 3K, 5K, 10K, whatever, and I'm just not getting any quicker. So the basic idea is, in order to move beyond that plateau, what we need to start doing is starting to train in whatever field with a different level of intensity. So whether it's running, cycling, swimming, any of those kind of endurance-based activities, rather than just going out every day and plodding at broadly the pace that you think you can maintain for your desired distance, and just continually doing that, we need to mix it up a little bit. So in simple terms, all that means is that if, for example, you were going to run, I'll assume that you can apply this principle beyond just running, but just to make it easier, we'll just talk about running. If you're trying to run, let me say, 10 kilometers in an hour, if that's your target to try and break an hour for 10K, then during your reach running, we need to do some running at a pace that's slower than that. We need to do some running at a pace that's roughly that pace. And we need to do some running at a pace that's quicker than that. You might be thinking, well, how the hell do I run quicker than that if I can't run that for the full distance? Obviously, the corollary to that is that we're going to run shorter distances quicker. We're going to run at target pace for less than the distance that you're trying to run. And you're going to run longer than the distance that you're aiming for, but at a slower speed. This allows your body to adapt through the various different metabolic systems. So you create speed, you create the ability for your heart and lungs to handle intensity in your shorter runs. You're training something called your VO2 max point when you broadly run at the speed that you would expect on race day to be able to run at for an hour. And then you're building your endurance and your muscle adaptation when you try to run for a longer distance at a slower level. And actually it also helps because it's a bit less boring. Because if you go and just try and run the same route at the same pace over the same distance every time, eventually psychologically it gets boring as well as physically. So just to give you, I was going to take you through a 6-week training program, but we're running late and my tech doesn't work. So that is the basic idea. Whatever your target is, then your target becomes your race-paced activity. You're going to run slower and quite significantly slower if you're new to this, some of the time, and you're going to run quite significantly faster. So Matt and I, the irony of Matt saying that he hasn't been doing any running, Matt and I had chatted about how Matt could improve his running and improve his running speed. So what we looked at doing was running either on a track or just on a road at about a speed quicker than the target pace, resting and repeating. So run hard, rest, repeat. Then we had some sessions where we're trying to run at target pace, which is probably quicker than we're able to run, but for less than an hour. And then, as I said, obviously, when we're going to run our long runs. So if you were aiming to run, for example, 25, I see Richard popping up saying he's on Couch to 5K. So this is the evolution of Couch to 5K. Once you've mastered that, this is how to get from Couch to 5K plus, which maybe be a bit quicker. So if you were trying to run 25 minutes for 5K, for example, you would do your pace-based stuff at 5 minutes per K. You would do your slow stuff at slower than 6 minutes per kilometre. And you'd be aiming to run your quicker stuff at something more like 4 minutes per kilometre. And then the basic idea is that we progress over a 4-week block. So for 3 weeks, we run a little bit further at each of our same paces. And then the 4th week, we have a bit of a rest week where we cut back our distances. We maintain our speeds, we maintain our intensity all the time. We just reduce the distances so that we allow the body to adapt to the training that it's undertaken. And then we start the process again from a little bit further. So we run at the same speeds, but we run a little bit further each time in our quick ones, a little bit further on our race pace efforts, and a little bit further in our long running. So if you were wanting to run 5K as fast as you could, I would be wanting you to build up to being able to run 10 and probably even 15K at a relatively slow pace, conversational pace, what I might have had a try to do to run on the treadmill and talk to you, but I would have lacerated myself with some of my cables, so probably not a good idea. But at a pace that you could run and chat to people, run, walk if that's what you need to do. Just get used to being out for a long time and get your muscles used to the fact that they have to keep going for a long time. And then from the short stuff, we're going to build some of that speed, build some of that power, and change the way that your body responds metabolically. So that is the idea. So if you want to progress, Adam's saying he's looking forward to his 6-week program. I will send it to him. If any of you want to do it, please just don't take it as it is. Come back to me and I will adjust it specifically for you, whether it's running or cycling or swimming or whatever it is that you want to do, providing you can reassure me that you are not going to die under my tuition. I'd be really keen for that not to happen. That kind of flies in the face of the whole 3-pronged general health and well-being objectives. But yeah, I'm very happy to help any of you with this. If you've done Couch to 5K and you've got a target that you want to aim for, if it's relatively Matt died a couple of times. If it's relatively straightforward, I'll help you. As you know, I am I have a level 1 CrossFit qualification, but other than that, I've just done lots of things badly in the past. If you need some proper training, I'll point you in the direction of some experts, but I can probably help most of you if you're moving up the stages from couch to 5K and on to the next stage. And that's it. Get out there, get running, or get in there and get on it and get running or swimming or cycling. Just get going and get some intensity into it. It helps with the endorphins, and then that's what starts to create the addiction.
Thanks, Steve. I will certainly get out on the track this weekend, I think. So that's kind of given me the extra motivation I needed.
Cool.
So yeah,
well, run a fast lap and a slow lap. Sorry, Joe. Just run the fast lap and then jog round it for a recovery lap and then go again. And whatever number you set out to do this week, set out to do one more next week, one more the week after, and then cut it back the fourth week. But try and maintain the same speed across all of them. So if you're going to do 6, for example, there's no point in breaking the 400-meter record in the first one and then trolling round at 7-hour marathon pace for the last one. That's a kind of training fail. I'm sure you would know that anyway. But
well, that
yeah, even for the same speed. We'll go a little bit slower in the first one. Remember, if it feels easy on the first one, that's right. If it feels hard on the first one, then you've totally stuffed it. You almost might as well go home and come back and try again the next day.
Excellent. Free tips. Thanks, Steve.
Pleasure.
So that just about wraps things up for today. Tomo, what do we have in the show next week?
Well, it's bank holiday on Monday. Woohoo! So we're back on Tuesday. So you poor sods don't get to see me doing my tight ass Tomo on Monday, thank goodness, because they are starting to run out, but I'm sure I think some over the weekend. We've got Dan Martin and Elliot Guthrie, who will be discussing the advisor gap. So yeah, have a great day. I'll post the registration link into Slack again for tonight's cocktail So yeah, get involved. Hopefully see you all next week. Bye.
Have a lovely weekend.
Bye.
Bye.